Good morning. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks
nice to see you again. Welcome. Great to have you with us. Please.
Tough act to follow right there.
Exactly right. I didn't bring my feather boa. I'm sorry. But had I known.
I thought we would get our own walkout.
Yeah, where was the music?
Exactly right. It's just, I think we should leave the topic to the experts, and they're clearly expert in building the future. But actually, Mete, you and the City of London, in some ways, have thought about the future quite a lot, haven't you? We sit here very close to the Thames Barrier, which is a testament of long-term thinking about the environment. In fact, we'd probably be underwater if it didn't exist, if people hadn't thought about this and thinking in a generational sense about the interaction between humanity, urbanization, and nature. Can you give us a snapshot of the philosophy that you have on how cities deal with the converging climate pressures? Because sea level is one, but there are obviously multiplicity of factors that you need to think about. Give us a sense of the philosophy that drives what the City of London is thinking.
Yeah, thank you, Vijay, and thanks to The Economist for hosting this in the greatest city in the world. My name is Mete. I'm the Deputy Mayor of London for Environment and Energy. And absolutely, look, one of the examples that I want to give is we're always thinking about the future. In London, historically, we've been plagued with the impacts of pollution. In the 50s and 60s, many people remember that we had the smog. When the mayor first got elected in 2016, scientists told him it would take 193 years for us to reach the legal limits of nitrogen dioxide levels in the UK. As of last year, for the first time in London's history, we've now reached the legal limits, and that's thanks to the bold political leadership of the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, with the delivery of the world's largest clean air zone. But everything we're doing, from cleaner air to how we're reintroducing species into the city. Beavers we brought back to London after 400 years. They are natural, flood resilient, and they build barriers and dams, right?
Yeah.
And the first beaver's name was Justin Beaver. And the second one was Sigourney Beaver. You can find one in Enfield and one in Ealing. But also recently, we've just announced too that we're bringing back white storks to London after 600 years. The highest number of zero-emission buses for any city in Europe, 2,700. 27,900 electric vehicle charging points. More than 72% of our black taxi fleet are zero-emission capable. We are a city that is always thinking about the future and how we can make sure that London is a fairer and greener place to live in.
Great. So, and obviously London was a pioneer with the congestion charge, something, I live in New York. It was incredibly controversial until it wasn't, until it actually happened, and suddenly now it's quite popular. And so some of these measures sometimes do take some political courage. And in that example, London showed a lot of leadership. But there can be concerns, legitimate concerns of social equity, of is there a regressive nature to some of these policies, especially if they're rolled out with more ambition or more aggressively. How do you think about the challenge of, the ULEZ charge, for example? There's been a little bit of a backlash. People living in the peripheries of the city may not have access to the best transport. How do you balance the need for environmental progress with making sure affordability isn't unduly undermined?
Look, I make no secret I'm not a traditional environmentalist. I come from a place called Hackney, which is the most deprived borough in London. And when I was growing up, I remember going home, seeing your parents opening up their energy bills year on year end, an increase in their energy prices because we're dependent on fossil fuels. And every time something happens around the world, it's working class Londoners who are paying the price for something that they didn't cause in the first place. So this is absolutely an issue of social and racial justice for Londoners. And actually tackling the climate justice issue is about making sure that we're dealing with equity. Last year, we had 4 extreme heat waves in London. And the difference between the heat waves we had last year and previous years was that these were for much more longer sustained periods. The impact that has on a lot of our working class residents across the city, particularly those living in council homes, where our homes aren't built for those purposes, are huge. And so my job is making sure that actually by dealing with the inequalities exacerbated by climate change, whether it's around our energy prices, food prices, air quality, access to green space. I mean, having access to a garden is a luxury for a lot of Londoners. And so part of what we're trying to do in London, as well as, yes, obviously dealing with the climate emergency, fundamentally the question is, what type of city do we want to live in? Cities shouldn't just be a place where we live to work. It should be a thriving environment for our children to enjoy their neighborhoods, for people to be able to enjoy their neighborhoods, and actually to make sure that people have the best health outcomes.
So in that spirit of livable cities, breathable cities, ones where people can enjoy, transport is sometimes the hardest nut to crack. And we have, of course, here Andrew with Lime. You're one of the founders of Lime. We've spoken over the years. And can you tell us your experience here with the role of your technologies, what it unlocks, what it enables, as well as some of the challenges? Because there are pushbacks from different elements of society as well. So tell us about what your vision is for cities that are designed around micromobility.
Yeah, well, thank you. And thank you for having me again. And great to be here with the Deputy Mayor. Really, what we're looking to do at Lime is transform how people move around cities. Now, people long ago would walk around cities, take horses around cities, and then when the car came along, it became totally dominant in the cities of our future. And we don't feel like that the past needs to be part of the future here, because we actually have ways of getting people around much more efficiently than cars. And I think we all know that we can't solve the climate challenges that we have through electrification of vehicles, of four-wheel vehicles alone. It simply will not happen. One thing that the Deputy Mayor didn't take credit for, which he should, is that when this mayor came into office in 2016, there were around, I think, 91 kilometers of cycle paths in the city. They're now over 430 kilometers. That growth of almost 4.5 times is enormously helpful in terms of helping transform a city of the future and decarbonize the city. So one thing that we're really focused on also is this new generation of riders. So we're now calling them Gen C, because no one can ever figure out which, for Gen cyclists.
Yeah, I can't keep all these labels straight here, yeah. What does C stand for here?
Gen Xer, Gen C riders from 18 to 34 are 49% of them take a shared bike once a week. They're also much more likely to want to live, either rent or buy, near shared cycling. So what we're seeing is that people are starting to want to shift their behaviors around a lower carbon, lower impact form of transportation. And really that's what we're all about. And as a business, our job is to figure out how to become as low carbon, low emissions as possible in our operations, in the production of our vehicles, in the whole life cycle of the product and service.
And the readers of The Economist will recall that it might be 5 years ago that we ran a cover, Peak Car, that predicted, certainly in Western markets, in developed countries, that we observed people getting driver's licenses, people buying cars were already beginning to peak among the younger generations. So this trend has been coming for a while, but it's not enough not to have automobility. You need to have alternatives.
Got to be available.
The kind of things we're talking about, right? Meaningful, safe, and viable alternatives. And cities around the world, of course, are moving in this direction. I appreciated how active you all were yesterday, so I'm counting on you. Hands up, anybody who has a question for our expert panels. I see there's a question that's come in on Slido. Thank you for that as well. We should have mentioned that. Okay, let's get a microphone here. And the same ground rules, please identify yourself and make it a good question, not a long-winded speech. Nobody likes a gas bag.
Oh, no pressure there then. Ashley Barnett from Lloyds Banking Group. So you mentioned obviously there about the variety of mobility. Where people do need a car, how do you make sure there's a just transition? Because obviously there's a lot of people, especially in and around London, without off-street parking.
Sure.
So what are you doing around that space?
Yeah, I mean, look, firstly, I should just say, actually, I am an avid user of Lime. I think I've got more than 1,700 trips, which is out of this world.
Are you trying to pass yourself off as Gen C? Is that what's happening?
I'm still 33, so I'm in.
There you go. Okay, all right.
And actually, what I would say is I've never been late since we've had these shared bikes in London. But just in response to your question, very important. Look, my dad is a cab driver. It's how he makes his bread and butter for our family. And I think one of the issues that we have in London is a question about how do we help working people get around the city quicker without being in congestion. You know, people, they're tradespeople, buses, for example. The average passenger size per vehicle in London is 1.1. Not efficient, right? And so what we need to do is actually to help working people get around the city quicker and our buses to get around it quicker, so people are more incentivized to do that. And, everything we've been talking about, whether it's around, quadrupling our cycle lanes, investing in our buses by having the highest number of zero-emission buses, what we're doing around extending bus operating lanes, for example, to 24 hours to make sure that buses get around quicker, and also investing in our transport system in terms of getting the tube network extended, good, nice trains. We've got the Piccadilly new train coming out later on in 6 months' time as well. This is how we can actually ultimately achieve that mobility that we need across our city. And what we have seen in certain parts of London, like Hackney, where I'm from, more than 84% of people either walk, cycle, or take public transport to commute to work, which is incredible. And there's been a huge modal shift in London since this mayor's been elected.
A question for you, Andrew, from our Slido, that it picks up on something that, I think you've heard around the world. Even people who are your customers and users, complain that, your bikes or your scooters are lined up, blocking sideways. Are you taking over a public access, a public good? In this case, a person specifically points out sometimes can block access for disabled people. It's a legitimate concern. What are you doing about it?
Yeah, it is a concern. It's something that we think about day in and day out and work with the cities that we operate in quite closely. In London in particular, we committed to what we call the London Action Plan, where we invested and are investing £20 million to improve parking bays, improve technology around sending folks to the right parking spots in congested areas, especially near public transport lines, which is super important. We're investing in on-the-ground staff that can help rebalance vehicles, and we're investing in technology so we can use AI and other services to understand, are people parking well, giving them guidance around where to park, and actually even making sure that they know where to park before they start their first ride. So all of those things are things that we're investing in to help solve the parking challenge. But I think what is interesting is when you see that there's a demand and you see that the evidence shows that we're actually missing ridership because of lack of availability, it really involves a cultural shift, right? How do we think about taking spaces that might otherwise be used for car parking, which, as we all know, cars sit idle 96, 97% of their entire lives. How do we use that space and how do we rethink cities of the future so that we can actually have a low carbon city of the future as well?
Okay, so you're on the case. Technology can help. Let's see. There's a time for a quick question. There's a hand here. Again, a quick question, quick answer, please.
Hi, I'm Alex Hyde. I live in Hackney, and I used a Lime bike to get here today. So I'm a fan.
Did you plant this guy in the audience? Come on.
Great audience.
You haven't heard my question yet. What are you going to do to improve rider safety and for general members of the public? I think Lime is hugely helpful, but one of the problems seems to be your pricing model, which encourages people to get to places as quickly as they can and often forget safety entirely. I nearly got knocked off my own bike by someone riding on the pavement and forcing a van into my path last week. So it is a great... It's a great
important
thing,
question.
But I think there were some problems with the pricing model and the way that shapes rider behaviour.
Sure, I can take that.
Yeah.
And, for pricing, we've actually just recently introduced something called Lime Prime, where we give riders up to 20 minutes. If they buy the Lime Prime pass, they can do 20 minutes for that pass, unlimited rides per day with no unlock fee. So essentially, it takes away that notion of if you're going to be a regular rider, we want to make it more affordable. We want to make it so that you aren't rushing to that spot that you need to get to, and that you're following, the local laws. So
that's not the experience of people on the ground. I think it's a great solution. I think there's a real problem in terms of safety of riders and the content that.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'll be the first to say there's this issue with safety. I think maybe you need to work on it some more. In London, you do have these dedicated trails. Again, I come from New York, where our idea of a bike path is a dashed line in the middle of the road that you could be run over by a garbage truck, right? So one has to acknowledge there's a range of progress on this, but you have more work to do. I would suggest to both of you is the feedback from our audience.
Absolutely. It's an emerging technology, right? We're trying to figure out ways to be shifting this car culture to two-wheeled culture, and that's going to take evolution, take innovation, take investment, and take partnership with cities like the City of London.
Great.
Yeah, and I just say, finally, because I know we're short for time, you know, like I spoke about the impact this is having on air quality.
Yeah.
This is real for real people. There's a young girl who tragically passed away in London. Her name was Ella Roberta. Just at the age of 9, tragically passed away and she's the first person in the world who had air pollution cited on her death certificate. And there are many more people who have unfortunately passed away because pollution has exacerbated some of their health issues. And so when we speak about social and racial justice, we should never ever have normalized breathing dirty air. You wouldn't drink dirty water. Why on earth have we normalized breathing dirty air? And just because it's always been like that, it doesn't always have to be like that moving forward. And so for me, fundamentally, you know, if we really are talking about all of these things, this is fundamentally about creating an equitable city where people can thrive.
Great. Well, we certainly applaud that goal and wish you success. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you, Vijay.
Thanks for being with us. We'll see you a bit later today. Thank you, Andrew. Welcome. Please.